were born on the same day. Peggy's daughter and one of our sons. So our connection, and they're in their middle 50s, so our connection goes back really long time. And I don't think it's not. I suppose it's probably not that easy to assemble a group this size with people who have known each other intimately for all that time. And one thing that I might contribute here, because I don't think of anybody else that probably will say it, is that I got the idea of having us tell our life stories to one another and record that. And I figured that, a number of us here were founding members of the Unitarian Church, so we have those connections that go back. I think that was 1956.
Mm-hmm.
And, but, the periods of our life that were even, young, when we were younger than that. No, wait a minute. What I was going to say was that we had our children at the same time and shared all of that history with the church. But it seemed to me that the only thing that would make us not like a real family is that we didn't actually grow up together. So I thought that if we made an effort to tell one another our life stories, that we could fill in that part, turn friendship into family. And I think it was a wonderful idea because I noticed, without getting specific about this, which I don't think I would want to do, but I think of certain people, well, maybe there's something about them that sort of annoys me or I don't understand. When you hear their life story, that makes you much more compassionate. You realize, if I had parents that were like, one person had a family where they didn't have a sense of humor, for example, that was mentioned. And then I felt I would feel a lot more open to loving feelings for that person if I knew what they had gone through in their lives. I don't know whether I like the way I said all that, but...
She'll edit it.
I think there were some good lines in there.
Yeah, okay. So, knowing those people, and of course we were living at Village Homes, which was a nice place to live. I think you were probably more attached over there than I was.
I was quite happy in Village Homes. There was a
So
swimming
he
pool I
wasn't
could walk
necessarily keen on thinking about living in a different way, but I thought it was I think I was maybe more drawn to the idea of us being together. In fact, we had even slightly explored an idea years earlier of not living with elders, but living with friends that we knew and building a communal swimming pool and all of that. But I guess we couldn't get the land.
Yeah, it was just kind of a
But we were
nebulous
beginning
dream.
to dream about that kind of a communal thing. So I think that was part of what drew us to the idea.
Well, I thought I was being a little bit selfish if I really wanted to stay in Village Homes, and Nancy was eager to get in this other community, and then if I managed to die off there, she'd be stuck in Village Homes, you see.
You just made that up.
No, I didn't. What do you mean?
You really thought
You
that?
don't know what I was thinking? Gee whiz.
Well,
Now we're getting a little marital thing for you.
I
see.
never heard it before.
You didn't? Well, that's what I thought.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll allow that you knew what you were thinking, and you didn't share that particular thing with me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the possibilities of places that we thought that we maybe could remodel to accommodate the group that we had you didn't like that, and I think you were of sound mind. I mean, I think it wouldn't have been nearly as nice.
Well, our group had just started to explore where could we, build something, and we got a realtor, and there was hardly any place in Davis. But then this little place on the edge of Davis showed up. It was right next to Highway 113, noisy kind of thing there, and the house was pretty big, and you could think about remodeling, but my God, it didn't appeal to me. But people were pretty eager because, gee, we could realize our dream right now,
Well, actually, John, you were you already know about Virginia Thigpen, who's referred to as our godmother, and she is just an essential part of this. She lived across the street from us in Village Homes, and of course she'd been had her own. What did you?
Well, Ridge Builders did a lot of construction work.
And she was the head of that.
Residential construction, so she knew all the angles.
But anyway, Virginia and John are avid swimmers, so they were going over to the communal swimming pool, and then and she had an interest, I guess, a small financial interest in this street and land.
Yeah, she was one of the partners that owned not only this land, but where the hospital areas that have been constructed, and I said, well, gee, Virginia, how about peeling off a little land for us, Well, maybe, and so it turned out they peeled off not very much. I think it was 7/10 of an acre, but that's why you see everything's pretty compressed. You're not enough space to put houses separately, but with common walls you could manage it.
And then, these are kind of key things, but then it had been zoned for commercial, this chunk of land that they had, and so it needed to be rezoned.
Well, the developer wanted it rezoned. They make more money out of residential construction than commercial. But every developer wants to have it rezoned, so it was uphill for the developer, but he got these old folks behind him, you see. We go down to city council meetings, all these gray hairs saying, we need to have this rezoned, and so it was a kind of a nice quid pro quo. It's worked.
And we met with the neighbors around here. They had already proposed putting in a nursery school or something, which the neighbors were not too keen on. But we impressed them, I guess, so they could imagine.
We said we wouldn't be too noisy after 9 or 10. So I guess we've been pretty quiet.
And then, of course, another, I think, really important thing was our architect. She just fantastic, and has become almost like one of the family.
Yeah, she had 8 bosses, it's pretty diplomatic job besides designing it. She got a good head.
So we're answering a lot of things that you didn't ask for, but
Giving advice to other people who are a few years away from thinking about the future.
Find a Virginia Thigpen and find a lot of old friends. and having a little money helps too.
Well, your timing was really good with the economy.
Yeah, we were lucky. We managed to sell our place right at the peak of the housing boom. Yeah, that was pretty lucky.
yeah, I think it was a blessing, quite a few blessings that we were just lucky to have. We have a lot to be grateful for, because I don't think nobody's ever going to be able to do it in exactly that way, but you need to I think that the relationships we had with one another and the luck we had. We also had a realtor that was.
The realtor was helpful, and Harrison Construction they normally build big commercial project, so they took I don't know why he took this thing on, because it was kind of a headache for him, I think, but they were very cooperative and tried to fix things that fell apart or
They
whatever.
must not have hated it too much because they're out doing that.
They're doing the Unitarian Church development now. Yeah.
Oh, one thing I wanted to record was when they read the covenant yesterday. I don't think I had enough of a sort of a backstory about it. So, do you think you could talk about what the covenant means to you again and then read it together?
Well, the covenant was generated by a brainstorming session we had about how we're going to live together, and we wrote all these things on the blackboard, and I think I copied it down along with Sue Salmon. We got together for lunch and we put the covenant together.
Well, you know, John, something that hasn't been mentioned at all is that we had a number of like little mini workshops.
Yeah.
Where we brought in people, friends that we looked at things like how our personalities meshed with one another and various ways of exploring who we are and how we connect. And
Yeah, I think that.
so that covenant thing was part of that.
Well, I think the brainstorming was part of one of those workshops, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got ideas what should get into a covenant, and we strung it together.
You remember, what was her name? I mean, she was a friend and everything that ran those.
Well, Patty Lawrence was part of it.
Well, no, but there was another gal who actually had been in the church and has now moved away from Davis.
You're stretching my memory beyond capacity.
No, you know her very well, but I just can't think of the. But anyway, she came in and had a number of sessions with us, talking about how the committees and various things.
Well, that was later. You mean that gal from the Marin?
Yeah,
Powell? Is that her name?
no,
Anyway.
I guess we were already in here.
Yeah, she wasn't part of the original brainstorming. That was Patty Lawrence and, well, maybe Sandy Westfall.
Yeah, I think so.
They ran the workshops. And then later on, when we got together here, after a few months, we decided maybe we ought to figure out how we're going to operate together, and we hired a kind of a professional gal who was good at organizing social things. So we brought her in for a couple of workshops and set up our committee structure and things like that.
I
It was very
suppose
helpful.
that would be a bit of advice that I would give anybody thinking about a project like that, is to, provide the opportunities for people to more deeply, understand their own nature in relation to other people, and it's easy to forget since that's all in our past, but that was all pretty. I mean, we had a number of people that were mildly interested in being in the group who dropped out. I mean, I remember one couple, they said that they were too young.
They were too young. And well, I think you put it pretty well. What you're trying to do is kind of create a family out of friends. It's another step of intimacy, and you need to think about things and how you're going to live together, and how close you want to be, and maybe how much privacy you want, and all that.
I may have already implied this, but you take like that we've known one another long enough so that our kids went to school together. And so when we think about how we pass this down to the next generation, I mean, they all, intimately know what we're all about, and so we're trying to provide for, so that these places don't get sold to folks who don't fit into the vision we have, and I think the fact that our kids know the kids of it, I mean, all that's in that vein.
Yeah, that's a long-term project, how you keep the continuity and bring in compatible people. And so we have a kind of a situation where we have a right of first refusal if we can't agree that the person that somebody wants to sell to is gonna be okay. You need some kind of a safety valve there, because you're gonna have to live with this person or these people.
Was that something you planned ahead of time? Is that something formal you have? Do you have a questionnaire or anything, or just?
Well, we
What was
invite people in that, we sent out a questionnaire, are you interested, to a lot of suggestions that people had, and then these people, if they expressed interest, we invite them in for dinner, we talk about
We
things.
still do that.
And that's an ongoing thing, so we don't have a list, we have a pool. That is, we reserve the right to choose out of the pool rather than just chronological order. And so that,
And then, of course, keeping our kids informed of all that so that they follow our,
yeah, if we're not around, then they can choose to compatible people.
we've lost a couple of people, but for the most part, we're the same group that started it all.
I'm gonna do a quick check.
Is this thing still running?
Yes. You know, my parents, they're best friends, who my father has known since the age of 3 or 4. They became very hardcore Republicans.
Oh, well, that wouldn't fit in here.
But they're still they're my parents' best friends.
Yeah.
And we were just told never talk about religion or politics with them. It's
That's
very
all we
hard to
talk
avoid.
about here, you
It's very
know.
hard to avoid that.
Yeah, I'll say that's a challenge.
Well, almost everyone here belongs to the Unitarian Church, and we do not have very many Republicans in there. I think
That would be hard to assimilate. They wouldn't be very happy either, I wouldn't think.
But I think to make a more general statement is to have people whose interests are not necessarily the same as one another, but where there's a compatibility.
The
of
compatibility of values, I
interests,
think,
of values
is
and
important.
interests. I guess, one thing that strengthens this is that people have different talents, so there's a way. Now you take somebody like Lois, who's got this wonderful relationship with plants and flowers and brings things, and then we have people with musical interests, and so we cover a whole range of.
Yeah, me being a physicist, I play with numbers and made a whole spreadsheet during the construction of what people's change orders were and all that, and then ground out a price for the places they had to pay, and with enough money left over to pay the contractor. And so that was kind of a challenge. So we each have a little something to offer.
I think
So-
we'll run over our 10 minutes.
And what about, I wanted to hear about hobbies or exercise, the swimming pool, your dream swimming pool.
Well, it was clear we couldn't build one here, so.
Oh, can you say, I wanted a swimming pool, but
Yeah,
start with the swimming pool.
yeah, the swimming pool's over in East Davis, and I go over there every day, swim. Well, I did 12 laps today. That's not, 17's a half mile, so it's a little more than a quarter mile. I'm working up to the half mile. I have leukemia, so I kind of lost my energy for a while, but now it's a little better, so I'm working back up to the half mile mark, I hope. And then a lot of people here you go to curves, don't you? We're pretty.
But I also belong to the athletic club, and I was going to water aerobics there. It's just that it's farther to go to, and you have to. I love I love the water, and I love their water aerobics classes. But we've been here long enough so that I can see that the matter of the effort to get there and get undressed and all that this curves, which basically I don't like probably as much as I did the
It's not as social as the other one, is it? For one thing.
no, it's very social.
Curves is social?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Every time you go in there, they'll have these people all working out on these things. They come and they say, well, do you know the people we have here today are Nancy and da-da-da.
You
know,
talk to
it's-
these people? and
Oh,
stuff?
yeah.
Oh, you do? I've never been there, so I don't know.
Well, that's no men there.
Oh, it's all for women?
That's right.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Discrimination.
Well, men don't have curves.
That's the trouble, I see, okay.
I belong to the lake club across from the shopping center. They have
Oh, yeah, that's a nice pool.
A heated pool there.
Yeah,
Have
that's
you
a
been
very
in that
nice pool.
It's open from March till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, well, this one's open all year round. You get to walk out there in the rain or whatever you want. Yeah, I used to play tennis over there.
Oh, mm-hmm.
Some nice courts.
Did you used to swim on campus in the heated pool?
Not a little bit, but then it wasn't quite as. When I first came, yeah, I did swim in the Toomey pool there. Before they had a recreation pool, I never swam in the recreation pool somehow.
That's nice too, but the hours are limited. You only have an
Yeah.
hour and a half at lunch.
Yeah.
I got there one day, they were